She was a star witness in a psychopathic serial murder and solved a murder case. Anyways, back to the story on Svetlana and the FBI and urine drop-off.
Yeah.
So now, all of a sudden, she knows who her father is, all right? And that general that had married her, he was wounded in an operation and ended up being in the hospital, ended up dying, from his wounds, she calls it Mission Impossible. Now, as a trained spy, a couple things I learned about Svetlana. One, she was totally ambidextrous. So one time when I said, "Why did you support Nikolai all these years?" Now, Nikolai was, in her case, the husband. He was no husband. He was a pure bodyguard. And she would sleep in her bedroom, when they had this little apartment in Los Angeles, and he would sleep on the couch because he was her bodyguard. He was her cook. He cooked for her. He was bodyguard. One of the top military bodyguards in all of Russia. Well, who else would you send to protect the president's daughter?
Right.
And I worked with a guy named Eddie Link. He was in the top 10 special forces in Germany. He's a jeweler, third generation diamond cutter, and I bought all my jewelry from her. And in a barter company, we used to barter a lot. And Eddie and I, to this day, are good friends. I think we talked last week on the phone, and I buy a bunch of stuff for him every time. Every time I get a girlfriend or a new wife, we go and we buy a bunch of jewelry from Eddie. So, and anyway, so he said, he goes, "Bruce, that guy is pure military." Now, Eddie used to, just to know Eddie, he worked at Barbara's Hotel, and she was building a bar. And the 10th time this happened, the police came and said, "Listen, Barbara, this is not working anymore, saying that your boyfriend is just an old man. This is the 10th guy he's hospitalized." Because they get rowdy in her bar, and he, collapse the windpipe, break a kneecap. He was a mean son of a bitch. He's even at age 80-something, he's still pretty mean, but he's mellowed in his old age. But top special forces, he's gone all over the world doing mines and gem cutting and been in some real hairy situations. And he said, so his analysis, those guys, I know another smuggler. You're not going to fool me. When you're telling me a smuggling story, I know if you're full of shit or if it's real and you've been there. And Eddie's the same thing. Special forces guys all know other special forces. And he said to me, that guy is pure military. I go, how do you know? He goes, the way he sits in a seat, the way he gets up out of a seat, he's pure military. He goes, watch this. And he says, "Oh, Nikolai, here's some keys." And he throws the keys on the opposite side of the room to Nikolai like a sprung cobra. That guy darted across the room and caught the keys. Another thing that happened with Nikolai was, now he's an old man at this point. This is after prison, years later. But just to prove the point that he was the bodyguard, not the husband, he was working as driving a bus for one of the hotels back and forth. Those buses, shuttles back and forth to the airport.
Sure.
And he's in the garage at the hotel, and there's a shootout with a guy robbing a bank, a big, buffed up guy, young kid, and the police are chasing him and shooting at him. He's shooting at them. This kid's full of adrenaline, runs into the hotel, pulls the gun that he has. He just didn't pull it. He pointed at Nikolai and says, "Give me the keys." Nikolai, an old man, disarms him and holds him down until the SWAT team got there. Because it wasn't just the police that came at that point. The SWAT team had come and arrested him. He got the Hero of L.A. award. Now, you can look all this stuff up. Hero of L.A., Nikolai Ogorodnikova. There's no Ogorodnikov. The A is for women. All right. He's a male, so he has no A at the end of his name. Hero of L.A. And they talk about it, but you don't put two and two together. How can an old man disarm a guy full of adrenaline in a shootout of the police and hold him down until the police get there? A trained friggin' military assassin and bodyguard. So, jumping back to Svetlana and Nina.
Or Jason Statham. If it was Jason Statham, he could probably kick everybody's ass too. So,
who's that? You mean Jason Bourne?
Well, Jason Bourne also, but no, Jason Statham is a famous actor who does all that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. But, you remember the Bourne Identity, that
Sure,
movie
sure.
when he's sleeping on the bench and the police come and he doesn't even know and he just disarms both of them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, same
that
kinda
was
thing. Yeah,
Nikolai. Nikolai was that good, and Eddie recognized, he goes, "If I met this guy in the battlefield, I'd kill him immediately." He goes, "I wouldn't even try and do nothing." He goes, "I've only met one other guy that quick, some little Thai guy in Thailand." He goes, "This guy sprung like a cobra." So the bodyguard was with him, and one time I said to him, he helped Matthew steal this $3 million of energy wellness machines from me and Svetlana. It was 1,000 machines. They're worth about 3,000. They sold for 3,000 retail. And I said, and she said, I go, why are you still talking to Nikolai? She goes, because he took a knife for me. I go, what do you mean he took a knife for you? Well, we were on Mission Impossible one time, and a guy was coming at me with a knife, and he stabbed Nikolai, and he took a knife right in the chest and saved my life. I go, wow, what did you do? She goes like this, reaches behind her, and she goes, I shot the son of a bitch. Now, she's doing a move and showing me this. Now, is this consistent with the story she told me? Yes, it is, because I worked with Svetlana in Unicor in Pleasanton, where this on the clamp, where this big machine would hold this these dressers together. They were for the military, and she'd go, "Zzz, zzz." You remember this story because you wanted to
yeah.
the sound fascinated you. "Zzz, zzz," and then she would pass it around her back and zzz, 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 completely ambidextrous. So this story was, "I shot the son of a bitch," or, was consistent and congruent with her story
Yeah.
about being this Russian spy. And then one time she told me another couple stories. We're down in Mexico because, and Pepe, who was in Pleasanton with us, was at war with Steve, who was in Pleasanton with us. And she was living in this pyramid condo building that Steve lived in. And Pepe is there yelling and screaming at Steve and saying he's going to send 8 people from the Guajira up, to kill Steve. And they may kill everybody in the whole building. Not the Guajira, somewhere in Mexico. Guajira is Colombia. And so she has a pistol. Somehow she got a hold of a gun. Someone gave her a gun. And she says, and she would shoot. I literally saw her shoot flies, shoot a fly in the air. And I go, what happens if you miss? She goes, miss? You can't miss. I mean, that was like this incredulous statement. What happens if you miss? Because she told me she was a trained marksman. And hitting a fly is pretty good. And then one day she goes, you know
Pretty
what
good.
happens? Yeah. She goes, you know what happens if 6 people from wherever it was in Mexico come up to try and kill you? He goes, you shoot the first one right here and the other 6 run away. That was her solution. I ain't worried about that. You shoot the first one here, the other will run away. So she was really a trained military assassin, spy. Um, she was completely ambidextrous. We got transferred after Pleasanton became men, all women, I mean. I went to Lexington, which was the last co-ed prison, and she got herself transferred there. And in Lexington, we were laying on the grass, and I'm watching her read a book, and I'm pretending I'm sleeping on the lawn, and she's reading, and she's turns the page. I start timing her. I start counting 17 seconds to read 2 pages. So she can speed read, and then she closes the book. I go, "You were speed reading?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes I go, "You're reading that pretty quick." She goes, "Yeah." He goes, "And I could read faster, but this is not my main language. Russian is." She spoke 17 languages. Um, And I knew that because in Pleasanton. So anyways, getting back to the book, I'll talk about the language in a second. She closed the book. I says, "What page were you on?" She goes, 124. I go, "Give me the book." She had a photographic memory. I opened up to 120. I go, "Oh, okay, I'm on page 120. What's it say?" She told me. She said exactly word for word what was in that book. She had a
That's amazing.
photographic memory, couldn't forget anything. And
And was that natural or was that created, in the training?
I don't know. It's probably a combination. I never asked that question, but I just knew that she had that ability. And
Yeah.
so the languages, she would hit me like this, whenever, which was often because I was always doing something I shouldn't, "Shut up." you know, "Do what I say." And, so one time we would be sitting there, and to test her, I'd say they're talking, let's say, in Farsi or Spanish or Portuguese, because we had all different languages in Pleasanton. She goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, he's mad at her because, she's been looking and flirting with another guy." And then she realized that I caught her being able to speak that language. She goes, "Oh," she hit me on the head. I mean, she did that all the time, and one time the warden called her in and said, "Why are you hitting that poor guy in the head? Because 'Cause you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to hit each other." She goes, "'Cause he deserves it." She goes, "Okay."
You
I
probably did, I could see that. Yeah.
I did. I was always mischievous. And I remember one of the Puerto Rican freedom fighters, she was walking towards me, she goes, "Don't do it." Because I have this shitty smile on my face, and I go, "Don't do what?" I was gonna do something bizarre. She goes, "Whatever
Yeah,
you're thinking, don't do it." I go,
that's
"What,
funny.
can you read my mind? I know you can read lips, uh, but no, I just can tell by that smile." So these are we're talking about prison in this episode. These are
Yeah, yeah.
adventures in prison. So the first time I slept with Svetlana, let's talk about that. I so what we're having a meeting for the children's center. I work for the children's center, and we're gonna have Children's Day where all the kids can come in, and it was like usually in Halloween, so you make, scary boxes and, all kinds of decorations for Halloween, and so we were planning that, and the meeting was in the women's unit. So the plan was was I walked in with the group, to go to the meeting room, but I veered off and went into one of the rooms, and Svetlana was waiting there for me. So I go in the room, we close the door, and it's very interesting what she did. She took a toothbrush and she jammed it in the side of the door, and then she took another toothbrush and she put it on top of the knob to hold that toothbrush up. She goes, "Okay, now the key will break before they can open that door." Now, I didn't know that trick. That's a spy trick.
Oh, to say she learned that in spy school, clearly.
Oh, yeah, clearly. And she could pick locks. She would pick locks all the time. Um, and, uh, and and, uh, um, and when a guard one time a couple times, a guard didn't have their key, "Lana, would you open this door for me?" She says,
Oh, that's funny.
"Okay." So she would open the door and pick locks. She had all these amazing talents that you see happen and emerge over the years that only a spy would have,
Yeah.
who
And what was your life like, day to day, in prison? You were just like a normal couple, or how did that all work out?
Yeah, we were a normal couple. In the daytime, we'd have breakfast together, alright? And then she would work in Unicor. She liked work because she had to do something. She had all this kinetic energy. She was like, almost like a speed freak. She couldn't sit still. And, um and then I would go and do whatever I would do. I mean, again, I got 5 college degrees, made straight A's, so I did a lot of studying. I'd work out on the weight pile. My job in the daytime was to clean the weight pile, so I would lift the weights and put them back, and then I'd work out. So I was great because I loved to work out. Remember, I was a undefeated weightlifting champion for 4 years growing up in Florida and took 3rd in the teenage nationals, in my weight division, so I love lifting weights. And then for lunch, the Unicorp people would come out and lunch, and then I'd go and eat lunch with her. And then she'd go back to work, and I go back to whatever I was doing, usually studying, reading at that in the afternoons. And, um, and I had study groups with Day and Mike Sullivan and Steve Kalish, was when he was there for a few months. We all studied together because we all took college classes. And it was really sorta cool, and then we'd have dinner at night, I and then we would go walk the track, and the outside track was exactly a quarter of a mile outside the inside. There's an inside track, which you had to come in after it started getting dark because you wanna be out in the big field because you could jump over the fences and escape, so they'd call you in. But that track was exactly a quarter of a mile. It was a measured track, it was really cool, so I ran it. I ran 3 or 4, um, miles every about 3 or 4 times a week. I played tennis a couple times a week during the day, on our tennis courts. There was bocce ball. I love bocce ball. I played that occasionally. Um, but there's a softball diamond, the
Diamond,
softball
yeah.
in one end of that track. So me and Lana would walk around the track, and she'd look. Remember, they don't have softball in Russia when she was growing up. And then we walk around way out to the end. Then we come back, and she'd look, with a confused look on her face. And we go back. Finally, the third time we did that, she'd say, "What is this stupid game? They throw the ball and everybody claps." And that was her interpretation of softball. They throw the
Right,
ball and everybody claps.
right.
S so it was it was very unique, discovering things. I remember one time, we took LSD, me, Lana, David Rhodes, and Judy, and, that was fun. We were out there, just the 4 of us, but another time, someone had
How do you get
smuggled in.
LSD in prison?
Oh, I don't know, somebody smuggled it in, you had the one of the guys from one of the founding fathers of the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, remember that group?
Mhm.
They made all the Orange Sunshine in America and a lot of millions and millions, 120,000,000 hits they put onto the streets of America. Thank you for your, uh, for your
Service.
service, guys. It was I wish you would do it again. But the window pane, you put it behind stamps, you put it in letters, where the top right-hand corner is all blotter acid, and you can't tell. Um, so one time, someone had 100 hits they had smuggled in, and about 90 people were tripping. And David Rhodes remembers this story, and he told me recently because we were trying to get him on the podcast. But, they're all getting old. He has to have his heart operation first, okay? So, we gotta get him quick, Todd, before they all die on us.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
And so he said that one of the guards said, "I don't know what's happening out here, but everyone's acting really, really weird." So they literally called and brought everyone back in. Everyone returned to your units. So I think I was tripping that one. Yeah, because I remember tripping in the room, finishing up. So we all came back into our rooms. It was fine. We all finished our trips inside our little, I would call them cells, but they're not cells, they're rooms, you know?
Right, right.
So that was a fun story that everybody was taking LSD in Pleasanton, men and women together, and was acting weird, so the guards returned him. But back to Svetlana. One of the things that she did one time that she told me, remember there was a movie that came out in America called, it was at the end, there was Russians, and they went to war on the Vietnam War, and one of the guys was, playing, Russian
Oh,
roulette.
Deer Hunter.
Deer Hunter. Okay. Well, at the end, if you remember, these are Russians singing "God Bless America." You remember the end
Yeah,
scene?
yeah, yeah.
Well, that was banned in Russia. You can't have Russians that came to America, fought for America, and so one of her front for her Russian spy and keeping the secrets was she was importing and showing Russian movies to the Russian community in Los Angeles, and then taking these big silver things with all the
Film
reels.
containers. Yeah.
Yeah, filled with spy material into the embassy in San Francisco. That was her normal trip, back and forth from LA, get the spy stuff from the FBI's agents that she had recruited, a lot more than just Richard Miller, take them back to the embassy. They would give her instructions, and then she'd come back and do the next thing, the next spy run, whenever that was. But she was in the film industry, so she took the Deer Hunter to Russia. She was an obstinate, stubborn woman. I mean, you met her.
Yeah, 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 for sure, to say the least. Right.
Yeah,
She was that. Well, talk about real quick, before we run out of time, um, and I know you guys famously got married in prison, so talk about building up to that and the actual marriage itself.
okay, so We did get married in prison, but I do want to finish the deer hunter story in Russia.
Oh, okay.
So but not now. I'll jump over. One of the people that were in prison with us was Ma Sheila and Pooji, her secretary, and Catherine, her other secretary. They were from Rajneeshpuram. For those of you that remember, that was an ashram up in Oregon, run by a
Nobody
guy named
remembers. Nobody
They don't
remembers.
remember 30 Rolls Royces, that the guy
Maybe.
had.
Maybe.
Big, yeah. You have to be my age to remember.
Exactly.
And
Right.
and so they got arrested for trying to poison the whole town. I actually thought it was sort of clever, my criminal mind. They hated them because they wore all a certain color. I think it was purple or reddish color, and they were called sannyasins, right? They were devotees, and they the local people up in Oregon didn't like them. They were, like, at war with them. So they decided they were gonna poison everyone so they couldn't go to the general election, and they'd get all those sannyasins in as, the city council members, the governor, or whoever, the mayors, and so they put salmonella in all the mayonnaise and ketchup in all the
Oh my God.
fast food stores. So the idea was it wouldn't kill anybody, but they'd be sick as a dog on election day, and they
Yeah.
would all go in election. Now, isn't that clever?
I don't know if it's clever, it's crazy. But yeah, I
Yeah.
suppose it's clever. A lot of crazy is clever, right?
Yeah, and you can watch that. There's a documentary called The Wild Wild West, Ma Sheila, and see the whole story. And there's different spin-offs of the story,
Sure.
different
Sure.
sub-stories.
Yeah.
So anyways, she was arrested for either that or something and thrown in prison. She was nuts, with the machine guns and stuff, and you don't me as the nonviolent hippie smuggler, I didn't really like her or like what she was doing. But in prison, we were friends, because I
Yeah.
had a yoga background, and she was empowered. She was a minister of Rajneeshpuram, so she could marry people. So she married me and Svetlana. We were secretly married by her, and to this day, I have the marriage certificate signed by Sheila, and the two witnesses are Pooji and her other, I think it's Catherine was her name, or Kathleen, secretaries. So we were officially married, and then when we got out,
Well, you call it a secret marriage. Why was it secret?
nobody knew.
Oh.
Now, to make
Well, I
it
know that's what a
legal
secret is. You didn't tell anybody, or nobody knew what was going on?
no, because, they wouldn't have given us permission to get married,
Ah, I see. I see.
and to make it legal, you had to file it with the state of California, and we never did that.
Hmm.
So we violated parole by being together all the time, and then we got married legally up in Lake Tahoe, but on the Arizona side, no, the Nevada side. So now we're legal, and that was official, but we still couldn't tell the parole because then we'd be arrested or violate parole for being out of bounds. One, in Tahoe, we're not supposed to be, and two, associating with each other, which we weren't supposed
Right.
to do.
Right.
And then when she became the star witness in the psychopathic serial murder for the FBI, she, I just breezed by that like that's a perfectly normal thing. Okay. Then, then
That's
the
that's
FBI
such a Bruce thing. That's such a Bruce thing, you know?
and then, of course, the parole officer threw her back in prison for working with the FBI without their permission. She was a star witness in the psychopathic serial murder and solved the murder case, all right, in court and everything. So she went back to prison for 90 days, and then when they got out, now it's known that we're hanging out together. So the parole said, "Well, if you get married, then you can associate with each other." So we got
Right.
married for the third time down in San Diego with only the FBI present and Nikolai, the bodyguard, and Nikolai's girlfriend. So I still gotta get pictures of that. They said, "We're not gonna get you any pictures until after the murder case is over with." But it came and went, and the lady went to jail for murder, but we never got those wedding pictures.
Oh,
I
damn it.
Alright, so to wrap up with Svetlana and my life with her, we were married for, I don't know, a lot of years, maybe 20, and then she started drinking a lot, and I had no experience with alcoholism, and I did not recognize the sign. So finally, after about 25 years of being married, I left her. We got divorced, and then it was very hard on her because, she was a didn't know anybody but me, and she loved me, and I loved her, but I couldn't live with an alcoholic. It was just too crazy, and she was wild. I mean, she was some of the
She was
wildest.
crazy.
Yeah, wildest stuff going on and very disruptive in business. So after I left her, when I left her, she had $1.2 million in the bank because I was not going to leave her destitute. And her son, the small penis Matthew, it's actually called micro something. It's a real medical condition, but it makes him wacko. And, or at least it made him wacko. He got most of that money out of her. He kept stealing. He stole a house that I gave her and threw her back into prison for her trying to steal the house back, for the house that I gave her for her birthday that he stole from her. He tricked her into signing it and stuff. That's a different story. Anyway, so after that, I got back together with her as a friend. And I bought her another house, because Matthew sold the first one, out in Dolan Springs, Arizona. Spent a couple $100,000. I was successful, very, very successful, because I ran a bunch of series of companies after I got out of prison. Phone Cards International Callback, the first publicly traded company called Medical Marijuana Inc., a big hemp company. So people like Steve and we always seem to go back to our level of comfort and build big empires, or build businesses at least. So I built this beautiful, beautiful home, redid the whole thing, spent $300,000, and she lived in total comfort in that house. Anything she wanted, she could go down to the store and buy all the food she wanted from Vince, your friend Vince. You know Vince,
Yeah.
at his store. And unfortunately, a lot of it was tobacco, and because she was a chain smoker, and alcohol. But I gave up trying to change her or getting her to stop. And so, but she got all the food she wanted. Whenever I visit her, I'd look at her refrigerator, take her shopping, and she'd get all the food, fill that refrigerator full of food, make sure she had a ton of food there. So, because alcoholics tend to not eat, and and she lived happily ever after at her home for the last 5 years of her life. And Judy McNillis, who we've had on, was actually living with her. Remember, Judy was her roommate in Pleasanton,
Yeah.
and was living with her, taking care of her as she got older. And she was there the day, she had, finally had an episode and was rushed to the hospital. I was living in Tennessee at the time. I flew back, immediately when I found out that she was hospitalized, and was at her bedside reading her the book, because Barry had told me that the last thing to go when she was on life support is the ears. They can still hear. So I was reading Jonathan Livingston Seagull to her when she finally passed away. So, I support her. That's, the smuggler's creed. I had an obligation and a commitment to take care of her, and I did. Unlike her son, who just stole everything he could from her, and everybody else around him, from me, from Don Steinberg. They're in a lawsuit now for $120,000 that Don loaned him. And he says, the statute of limitations run, you can't get it back.
Right.
Matthew, he gave you the money, pay it back.
Yeah.
But anyways.
So honor amongst thieves, but not amongst family. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Right. You always hurt the ones you love, right? That's all fascinating stuff about Svetlana, and I can never say her last name, so say it for us again one more time.
Svetlana Ogorodnikova. And by the way, I never finished this part. Warren Russell Howard was actually hired to write this book as part of her defense. They did not want them digging into her life and all the technicals of people that she had actually really recruited in the FBI. Or know that she was Yuri Andropov's daughter.
Right. Yeah, it's just fascinating stuff that we find our little pal, Bruce Perlowin, the King of Pot, wrapped up with the Russians now. It's just crazy stuff. What a life. And Bruce, as we continue on this journey, even though I know a lot of these players and a lot of these people, it's still just fascinating for me to hear all of these wonderful tidbits. So thanks for the stories today and always. And his name is Bruce Perlowin. He's the King of Pots. My name's Todd Denkin. I'm his cousin. And this is Becoming the King of Pot. Thanks for watching.